Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod with Laurence Fitch. He is co-founder at Bryd. It's a Slack consultancy, and he's also a partner and a community leader. This podcast is brought to you by podpar.com. It's my podcasting agency. If you want to start, scale, or be invited to a podcast like this one, you can just Google my name, Charles Cormier, and you will find it there. Laurence, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and about Bryd.
Hi, Charles. Good to be here. This is my first venture, actually. First one that I've gone at myself anyway. I co-founded Bryd with another ex-Slack employee around 4 or 5 months ago. In terms of my background, I started off my early career in actually recruitment and ad technology. So like media and advertising. Which then led me into joining a company called Data Rama, which was basically a way of visualizing data from ad tech campaigns and marketing campaigns. And that really brought me to the path where I am today, where it got acquired by Salesforce. Salesforce acquired Slack, and then this led me to launching this venture that I have done recently.
How did moving to Singapore felt to you? Was there a lot of adaptation? Was there a culture shock?
Yeah, for sure. So, like you said, I'm based here in Singapore. Have been for the last 7 years. And previous to that, I was working in London. I grew up. I studied in the UK. But yeah, I've always had the kind of itch and bug to travel, I guess, and loved, different cultures. Had been out here as part of my dissertation project, actually, all the way back when I was studying biology at university. I came out here to do, a project in the rainforests in Indonesia. So ever since then, I've had the bug to come back, and my girlfriend, who's now wife, was also interested in moving out here. And yeah, we kind of had a 2 year plan, and 7 years later, we're still here. It's a super friendly business environment to set places up, and there's a huge amount of opportunity within the region. As I say, you've got growing markets on your doorstep, so like Indonesia, which are rapidly, turning into, a burgeoning middle class. But you're also very well placed to serve, northern regions like Hong Kong and China and Korea, but also you can get down to Australia quite easily as well, which is still a very big market.
Right. And why did you leave your well-paid job at Slack?
Yeah, it's a good question, to be honest. It's something that as I say, the entrepreneurial itch I've had for, I would say, a long time. It started really when after doing my first job in, as I say, recruitment, ad tech and advertising. I would guess, recruited myself into a role with a startup called LoopMe, which was a mobile advertising technology company. And back then, the mobile ad tech space was very just burgeoning and just getting started. So a lot of the big players hadn't really developed any good or interesting formats to deliver on mobile devices. I saw an opportunity to join, a founder and CEO of the company and basically be one of their first sales hires. So I guess that's kind of where the spark was ignited for me to do something maybe later on in my career, because I've sat there, from the start in a small office with 5 people, just getting going, adapting on the fly, to starting up a new business which no one has ever heard about. So I was with that business for 4 or 5 years before I moved out here to Singapore. And then whilst I was here, particularly in my roles at Salesforce, I was part of the Data Rama acquisition, and saw really when a big company like Salesforce, buys a tool or software, they face a challenge, 1 or 2 years into that tool being, deployed to suddenly now 80,000 people rather than the, 2 or 3,000 that might have been working at that company, or even in Data Rama, I think it was 300 when it was acquired. The issue of scale, basically, you go from a very small amount of people talking about the product to a huge amount, and that leads to what Salesforce is very good at, building a partner ecosystem to serve those customers. So I had seen it essentially, this repeatable playbook happen 2 or 3 times over the last 5 or 6 years while I was at Salesforce. They acquire a new company. There's a big gap in the market to service, particularly the mid-market and general business space of customers, to help them use the tool better, to implement it better. Honestly, my first foray into this was not to actually set this up myself. There are plenty of other Salesforce consulting companies out there, the big 4 consulting companies that we work with, and I essentially, on the back of a napkin or on a whiteboard, took it to a few different companies as enterprise account executive, which is the role I held at Slack, to help me do my job better, to help customers to realize the full value of Slack, which I could see working at Slack. You can imagine there's nobody that uses Slack better than Slack. So after taking it to a few different organizations and getting kind of lukewarm responses, I thought, well, if they're not going to do it, then maybe I'll do it myself. And that led me to meet my co-founder, actually. So I think it was very opportunist timing, where he was having a very similar idea at the same time. My co-founder Jacob, he's been at Slack for over 5 years now, so one of the very early people to launch Slack within the whole of Asia Pacific, and comes from a much more product, technical, customer success background. So my skills within kind of marketing and sales and business development married very well with his understanding of the platform and delivery of projects.
Why should people use Slack over MS Teams or other instant communication tools?
Yeah, it's a really good question, actually. Even after years of selling Slack and, even being a Slack consultant, it's very hard not to just go to the saying that if you don't know what you don't know, you wouldn't know how good it is, basically. And there's a reason, I almost go back to my recruiting days here, and speaking to customers in terms of how much love and passion there is for the tool, in that we're getting to an age now where when people are deciding what jobs that they want to do, people don't just look at the salaries. People are obviously looking at job titles and salaries like they always have, but I honestly know many people who in their interview questions will question, what tools do you use? Because whether it's Zoom, which we're doing right now, or whether it's Slack, or like you said, Teams, or using something much more basic like WhatsApp, you're in that tool every day, right? Even if you're in a semi-hybrid model or working in the office, you're still working in Slack or Teams with someone. And really, Slack is the number one tool out there to be able to customize and create what's called like a digital HQ or productivity suite. So in short, what I hear from many people who use Teams is that when you stay within the Microsoft ecosystem, Teams works quite well in terms of document sharing, etc. But when you want a tool which is like super flexible, able to connect, for example, for to create polls, and be able to connect your Google Calendar and 20,000 other apps, for example, Slack is really the only way to do that.
And then the niche is quite cool. Who's your ideal customer persona in that case? Who do you target? Is it tech companies? Who are your ideal buyer?
So it's anyone who's using Slack today, has been using it for a long time, or is thinking of using Slack. So we really support the whole journey in the customer life cycle of someone who is interested in, as I say, revolutionizing the way that they work and their business with Slack. So, as a Salesforce and Slack official partner, which we are one of, I think, 2 in the whole world who are focusing specifically on this topic. I'm sure maybe some of the bigger ones will look and catch up at some point. But we partner like very closely, as you can imagine, with the Slack team, and of course, coming from Slack, there's a big benefit to knowing how they operate and how they work. So yeah, we go in as a partnership where one of the Slack AEs, which either was one of the friends of mine that I used to work in the office with, or now many of the global teams. As I say, we're working with the teams from America all the way down to Sydney. They might bring an opportunity to us, which could be that a customer is, like you said, been on WhatsApp, been on email, and wanting to have a more official line of communication, and we'll help them set that platform up for them, rather than just figuring it out for themselves. And as I say, the maturity curve is of course a lot shortened, and they start getting to use the features which are the most powerful features in Slack, like workflow automation, connecting apps, starting to do things with AI summarization, that kind of stuff. We help them to get on that journey. And likewise, other customers may have been using the platform for 4 or 5 years, and there's a lot that you might not know that it does. Slack's amazing at releasing products. I found even when I was working at Slack in the mothership, it was sometimes hard to keep up with the amount of products they're releasing. There's a tool called Canvas, which has been released recently. There's another tool called Slack Lists, which is almost like Monday.com coming into your Slack instance. So this is why I think there's such an amazing space for an advisory practice and a consultancy as ourselves to come in, because you've got access to all these features, but many people either haven't turned them on yet, or haven't matured enough to deploy them within the business. So we really help people do that.
What are your packages? How much do you charge generally?
It really depends on the engagement. So as I say, it could be a fixed scope where someone, as I say, just wants to launch Slack, and they want to do a very basic launch package, and that would just have a fixed scope pricing and cost around it. But we also offer managed services as well, where you could engage with us, as I say, much larger companies, or companies where Slack is so integral with them, are almost getting to the stage where they're looking at hiring like a full-time employee to manage Slack within their business. So for some companies, because the management of Slack, you might have 1 month where there's a lot to do, but another month where there's not a huge amount to do. So we can either support that team, or if that team hasn't been built out already, we can be working on a retainer of a monthly hourly rate with people. So yeah, it really depends on the project.
And does Slack refer you clients? How do you get your new clients?
Yeah, so it's a mixture of us doing our own business development, ourselves. There's a lot of founder-led growth that we're working on. LinkedIn is a fantastic tool. I think the first we had assumptions maybe about our business, especially, as I say, setting up here in Singapore. Even though I'm British, my co-founder's Australian. I think we thought we would be serving maybe the APAC market for a lot longer before spreading out into other markets. But quite quickly, within the first month or 6 weeks, we had a lead come in from Washington DC in America, one phone call with the customer, and that was our first paid engagement. So as I say, it's a mixture between having a very close relationship with the Slack team. They can bring us in. We can also refer leads into them. And then also, as I say, just tackling projects and clients, ourselves sometimes, without the need to have the Slack team involved, depending on, the lifestyle stage of that customer.
Right. What would be the top challenges that you face so far in the business?
Yeah, I would say the top challenges, in terms of this business that we've launched is, I would say, our biggest USP is in sometimes, a way, our biggest Achilles heel, in that, what we're offering is completely brand new. I think, as I say, for many years, Slack has very much been an organic led growth product within a business. If you wind the clock back for 4 or 5 years, it was kind of, a chat tool with a couple of apps connected and, workflows. But what it is today versus what it is back then is, it's two different animals, two different beasts. Particularly with the acquisition from Salesforce now, there's so much that you can do with this platform. If you've got Sales Cloud, for example, there's a tool called Sales Elevate, where a account executive or a seller can come into their Slack environment, and at the top of the Slack toolbar for them, they would have their opportunities, their open pipeline. So as I say, really, I'd say our biggest challenge is kind of taking people who maybe have used Slack for a long time and think maybe that it's just for messaging, and showing them showing and implementing them for them what the future of Slack really holds, and making sure that they're getting the maximum value out of the platform.
What would be your top goals for 2024?
Yeah, so our top goals for next year, as I say, we're launching the business kind of 4 or 5 months ago. We're about to be in the position where we've closed deals and have case studies pretty much in every region other than LATAM for now. So yeah, the whole of North America, a lot of EMEA, which of course it is kind of my old backyard. So it's great to be working again with teams there, and in APAC as well. So I think our top goals for next year really are kind of like solidifying our value proposition, getting customer case studies, and doing some PR exercises as well, so that we have the customers that we've delivered for, shouting about how, loudly about how we have changed the way that they work internally. And once we I think the hardest part is opening the door. Once people see what Slack can really do, and see how quickly it can be implemented by a company like ours, it moves quite quickly.
Where can people find out more about you, Laurence?
So yeah, you can just obviously add me on LinkedIn, or go to bryd.io, find out more about us there. As I say, all of our packages are on there, and there should be some more stuff coming out fairly soon, with a website refresh and some customer case studies going live.
There you go. That was Laurence Fitch and Charles Cormier for another Wisdom podcast. Thank you all, and see you next time.